all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Good day. I'm Jim Fossone. I'm the officer of the deck today here on Veterans Radio, and thanks for joining us. We've got some interesting stories for you. We always want to remind you you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or at the web, veteransradio.org, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.org. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank National Veteran Business Development Council, nvbdc.org. It was established to certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses. You'll find out how they can help your business by going to nvbdc.org. We want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. And finally, PuroClean. PuroClean is the paramedics of property damage. It provides water damage remediation, flood water removal, fire and smoke damage remediation, mold removal, biohazard cleanup. It also has a focus on veteran franchisees. You can learn more about them by going to puroclean.com. We just want to remind you that Veterans Radio podcasts are available on all your favorite streaming platforms, including rss.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Rees Across America Radio. So wherever you are, you can find us. We were recently identified as in the 15th spot, if you will, of the top 100 veteran-centric podcasts by FeedSpot. So we're really pretty proud of being in the top 15. So listen in wherever you're at to veteransradio.org and its podcasts. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today Christina Johnson. She is a veteran advocate with an organization called Asbestos Ships, which is a nonprofit that I bumped into, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. I don't think we've talked about this on Veterans Radio in a long time, at least. Christina, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me here today. I'd like to discuss the important work that we do, and particularly for our older veterans who need that extra support.
Absolutely. And this arises out of the fact that asbestos was used as sort of a, product, almost a miracle product to reduce fires on ships in particular, but all through the country, asbestos was used through the 70s. Tell us a little bit about that history in terms of ships, and it wouldn't just be Navy, it would be Coast Guard and any other ships that the government was involved in. But tell us a little bit about how asbestos was used.
Absolutely. So from 1930s to the early 1980s, asbestos was everywhere on U.S. Navy ships, submarines, shipyards, and also military bases. So it was in over 300 different products, installation, pipes, boilers, you name it. The problem was that nobody back then fully understood the health risks. So safety measures like protective masks or wetting down materials were not enforced. Veterans, especially those with hands-on roles like shipyards workers, insulators, or Seabees doing construction, were exposed on a daily basis to asbestos dust, often in, cramped or poorly ventilated spaces. Many didn't even realize they were breathing in these harmful fibers.
Yeah, that's really back then, both because maybe science wasn't as far along, medicine wasn't as far along, and quite frankly, we as veterans probably didn't pay attention to any instructions we got anyway, but it really had long-term effects on veterans working in those areas where asbestos fibers got airborne because, as I understand it, right, it gets trapped in your lungs.
Right. Yes. It can lead to serious health issues. And unfortunately, it takes decades for all of the symptoms to show up.
When you say serious health issues, could you elaborate what kind of health issues, if somebody was exposed to it, might they end up with?
Right. We're talking about non-cancerous conditions like pulmonary fibrosis, asbestosis, chronic bronchitis, COPD, pleural plaques, pleural thickening, and many others. These diseases can make breathing difficult and severely impact the quality of life of our veterans. And
And really, my doctor might not even think to ask me that question, I suppose, if he didn't know, hey, yeah, I was a millwright or I was a this or that on ship. I was in fire damage control. I mean, I guess you got to know what questions to ask or what information to give if you've got one of these non-cancerous diseases.
exactly, and that's what we do with asbestos ships. As soon as we call our veterans, we walk them through a process where we tell them what kind of questions, what kind of what kind of tests they should ask their doctors in order to um, get properly diagnosed, and then also, try and help their VA claims and their other types of claims that they can be eligible for.
Now, neither you or I are medical folks, but you've got deeper understanding of this whole field than I do. Is there a way to test to say, yeah, I kind of think I was on a ship doing X, Y, or Z? Is there a way to test if I've got asbestos in my airways?
The best way to test for that is by going to bee readers, but there's only a few in US that actually do these types of tests, and a regular chest X-ray would be enough to see, and then a breathing test, and they do various different tests right now. But I do recommend. I do tell veterans that you do need to go get a chest X-ray, and you need to ask these 10 questions.
I was also surprised in reading some of the materials that you have on asbestos ships that exposure to asbestos could develop cancers that extend beyond the lungs.
Oh yes. So what happens? These fibers can they get inhaled and then they get ingested and they can travel through your body and they will attack your weakest organs. So if you're predisposed to or your immune system is weaker and let's say, like in other in with other organs, then you will get brain cancer, you will get prostate cancer. And we know this for sure because upon biopsies, they do find fibers in liver, prostate, colon, and other organs as well.
Yeah, as I said, I kind of was thinking, well, this is a lung pulmonary problem. Was kind of surprised to learn it can be a lot, can have impacted a lot more in your body, organs in your body than just the lungs.
Yeah, many veterans don't really know that. And the most important part is like many veterans don't really go to the doctor early enough. So an early diagnosis is crucial. And that's what we try to create awareness for.
So you have a website. The
Mhm.
organization's website is asbestos-ships.com,
Right.
which has all kinds of information on it. But I notice when I'm on it, I actually get a chat bot with your face and says, "Hey, I'm Christina. Can I help you?" What are common questions that you get from veterans or friends of veterans who are kind of just trying to get some information and understand this process?
Most of the veterans, we get about 50 to 100 calls a day. It's insane how many calls we get. I mean, I can't even answer all of them in time, and oftentimes I work as much as I can so I can call them back and educate them mostly. The early diagnosis and diagnosis questions, like most of the times Some of them, it's too late. They already have cancers, they have the cancer diagnosis, and they need help with their VA claims. And that's very unfortunate. But some of them just have the symptoms, and the symptoms can take 3 to 4 years to develop into something more serious like cancer. So they can actually manage those symptoms if they would just get diagnosed and they would just get educated about their quality, like what am I, where am I right now in the process? Because the fibers are non-removable, right? They live in your lungs and they're gonna stay there. So it's something that they have to learn to manage. And if they are more educated about the early diagnosis, then it's absolutely vital for veterans. And I can highlight a couple of reasons of why why this group actually deserves special attention.
Absolutely. Please do. And I think that weaves into one of the things you guys work on, which is sort of the whole policy, trying to get policymakers, VA leaders to understand this. But go ahead and explain it to us.
Yes. So, first of all, veterans, they face unique health risks tied to their service. Many of them were exposed to environmental hazards like Agent Orange, burn pits, radiation during their deployments, significantly increasing their risk of developing cancers such as lung, prostate, leukemia, and many other types of cancers. These Unfortunately, a lot of these cancers develop often silently with no symptoms in the early stages, so catching them early through regular screenings can mean the difference between a treatable condition and one that's advanced and far and harder to manage. So, the second one is veterans often deal with complex health challenges, including higher rates of chronic conditions like PTSD, physical injury, which can mask or delay cancer symptoms as well. An early diagnosis ensures that cancer isn't overlooked and allowing for timely intervention. Um, so, for example, I've been just reading about something about the VA's own data that shows that veterans diagnosed with stage 1 lung cancer have a 5-year survival rate of around 60 to 70% compared to just 10 to 10% for stage 4.
Oh, yeah.
So, those numbers speak for themselves, and early detection does save lives.
One of the things that I thought was also very interesting on your website, which is asbestoships.com, are the blogs that you have talking about different issues. And maybe it's once or twice a month you put a blog out. Uh, the October one was radar technicians and exposure, asbestos exposure. Um, but another one was a month earlier was testicular cancer as a presumptive condition under the PACT Act. So there's a lot. You try. It seems like you're trying to put out good information every month that maybe the uh, veteran who's looking for some answers might find some here. What are you the writer of these blogs, or how do you pick your topics?
Yes, I do everything myself, and by interviewing and talking to the veterans, I document everything that is of their interest and they want to find, answers to, or they want to find out how the process is like, or what it looks like. So, um, I try to be transparent with that information based on, the interviews and based on my conversations that I have with them on a
Yeah,
day-to-day
I sort of
basis.
had a feeling this is one of those things where you go like, I've had a lot of these questions this month. I'm going to go try to try to put something out there for people.
Yeah, and not all of them are, educated or like they know enough about the PACT Act, but some of the veterans like read a lot and they amaze me with their questions. They make it hard for me sometimes. So I love that. I love that they're curious and they're just well researched. And I want to make sure that all veterans do that for themselves. And I
You
know.
all you also have a function on searching for ships. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yes, so not all of the ships, or at least, some of the older ships in particular, sometimes they don't have enough crew members that are still alive. So sometimes, veterans will call me and they just want to connect with a shipmate, and we help them with that. And we find out who is still alive, where if we have a phone number for that shipmate. Sometimes they submit their pictures, they submit their data, they submit their information. So we connect veterans with um, former um, former uh,
Shipmates.
yeah, shipmates. Sorry. I was
Well,
lapsing.
and you also link to the various shipbuilding yards or shipyards that these American ships were built out of, because so many, ships got, if you were in the Navy or in the Coast Guard, you sooner or later you're probably on a detail that's taking the ship back into the dry dock for repair work or maintenance or upgrades. So that's also a
Exactly.
very interesting feature of your website. I suspect that gets a lot of play as well.
Yeah, so while the ships are very important, some of the ships have a lot of veterans that call me from them, and some have less. But with the shipyards is particularly interesting, the fact that they were working all day long in the shipyards, and they would go home, they would carry not just the asbestos fibers, all the toxins on their clothes, and then their wives and children would breathe them in. And eventually, years and years later, they get sick from the same exact illnesses that the veterans are sick of.
When you and I were talking about setting this interview up, one of the things you said to me was that the call center is really the heart of what you do at asbestoships.com. Tell me what you meant by that.
Yes, I would like to spotlight our call center. It truly reflects the heart of our organization. We are a small team, more like a family, and we pour our heart into every interaction that we have with our veterans. Um, we have a high volume of calls. We can't answer every single call immediately, but we take messages and we follow up diligently. We call back as many times as it takes. I love talking to these veterans on the phone, and I can tell that some of them enjoy doing that. So,
Well, this
um,
this clearly has to be a passion project, which most small nonprofits really are. But do you have partners or sponsors who've been helping you in this passion project?
we have a couple of we have had a couple of sponsors, but they're very small. I do this out of my own with my this is what I like to do with my own time, honestly. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to do it and to be able to help veterans who may be sick, elder, or alone navigating the VA programs and the claims, and I hope I can support them as they deserve.
Well, it does become very confusing, and because asbestos exposure, as you mentioned, is sort of generally just one of the things you got exposed to, as along with all kinds of other toxins. You find that these older veterans have multiple health problems, and sorting out what is tied to what, and is there service connected, and is there a medical nexus. It gets pretty confusing, I think, for the veterans. I suspect that's what you hear in the phone calls.
Yes, it is. It is incredibly challenging. Some of these veterans at one point they do need extra help. So like we help them with the VA claim that they already are processing, or sometimes their VA claims get denied, and then we help them with that. But sometimes I do need to refer them, and I tell them like, hey, you can actually get asbestos trust funds on top of your VA claim, and then we have to refer them out to a law firm because then they're the only ones that do that. However, I only refer them to law firms that I know that 6 months later when I call them back, they tell me, yes, I have been helped, and yes, I was able to be compensated. So we research on our end that as well, and I base everything um, on the fact that we call them back and there is a result, and there is, like, a lot of veterans tell me like, yes, I'm getting my claim and this is the process, and I'm learning on how they're doing that as well, and I'm posting as much as I can about that.
Well, the website, as I said, is pretty robust. And you can find out about your ship. You can find about the shipyards maybe that you went into or the ship went into. There's blogs set up for different types of information. How long has the organization been at this?
I've been doing this for about 20 years now, since
20 years.
2005.
How'd that happen, huh?
Well, I have lost somebody that have has worked on one of these ships as well, and that made me curious and made me research more information. And then I was just a wealth of knowledge, and I wanted to have all of this information and continue to help others.
Is
So,
there a phone number that if people have questions about maybe their medical condition and it's linked to their exposure to possible
mm,
asbestos in the Navy or the Coast Guard, or I suppose there's other exposures, but I'm thinking ships primarily here,
yeah,
that they should call?
yeah, our phone number is 760-621-6147. And and I want to tell you also about the partnership. You actually asked me about partnerships and all of that. So sometimes we get listed in a lot of the VA offices, like the VA offices endorse us and recommend to veterans that they give us a call so that they get more help. And then we have a couple of other medical offices as well that we help with, particularly like VA centers and oncology treatment centers. Um, so that's
Well, it's
I'm,
certainly a confusing area for, I think, a veteran who has such an exposure and 30, 40, 50 years later has a
mhm.
possible disease path. So finding information, finding a resource that'll provide you some more information is always useful, which is why we wanted to bring Christina Johnson from asbestos-ships.com to our veteran radio listeners. Um, Christina, you're doing great work. Hopefully, we won't add too many more calls to the 50 to 100 that you get a day. But why don't you give out that phone number one more time?
Yes, of course. Our phone number is 760-621-6147. Thank you, Jim, for having me.
Well, we're really glad that you took some time this afternoon to talk to veteran radio listeners about the long hidden issue associated with this asbestos exposure and all these kind of things that show up decades later. Christina, we really appreciate your time today.
It's been my honor. Thank you so much.
And I want to thank everybody for listening to Veterans Radio today. I am Jim Faussone. It's been a pleasure to be your host. I'm a veterans disability lawyer at Legal Help for Veterans, and you can reach us at 800-693-4800 or legalhelpforveterans.com on the web. You can follow Veterans Radio on Facebook and listen to its podcasts and internet radio shows by visiting us at veteransradio.org. That's veteransradio.org. We again want to thank our national sponsors, the National Veterans Business Development Council, nvbdc.org, Legal Help for Veterans, a veterans disability law firm with a national practice before the VA, can help you on your claims and your appeals. It can be reached at legalhelpforveterans.com or 1-800-693-4800. And PuroClean, a leader in property emergency services. It's the paramedics of property damage, providing water damage remediation, flood water removal, fire and smoke damage remediation, mold and biohazard cleanups. You can reach them at puroclean.com or 800-775-7876. We also want to thank our local sponsors. This would include the Charles S. Kettles chapter of the Vietnam Veterans of America, that's chapter 310, VFW Graf O'Hara Post 423, the American Legion Irwin Preskin Post 46 in Ann Arbor as well, the VA Ann Arbor Healthcare System, and certainly the National Vietnam Veterans of America Association. You can be a sponsor by going to veteransradio.org, clicking on the About Us and our sponsors, and help us out. Keep this program alive for the 21 and 22 years. Keep us going for another 20. Thank you.